you the type of person that hears but doesn't do? Or are you the type of person that's a doer of the words you hear? This video is going to be my most useful video to date. If you grow plants and if you apply what I'm about to show you. Have you ever had insects or disease on your plants and you go, oh, I got this insect, I'm going to go get something to get rid of the insects. Or for disease, I'll get something to get rid of that disease. What if they were really not the problem and they were there to help you understand what's the real problem? The real reason is the agronomic or nutritional requirements for this tree aren't met. What do I mean by that? Well, agronomic really refers to the conditions, the growing conditions for this plant. And it usually refers to things like drainage, irrigation or lack of it, and sun exposure. That's three of the most common ones. If you're trying to grow fruit trees and your drainage is, you see puddles after a rain, probably your drainage is not optimal for fruit trees. If it's irrigation and you're in a dry climate and your trees are young and you don't have irrigation, that's a big added stress on your fruit trees. And stress is a great starter point for insects or disease. Your plant is stressed. Oh, I'm so stressed. The insects and disease, they just come because they're attracted to stressed plants. And the third one, sun exposure, and I've seen this comment so often. I'm trying to grow these fruit trees, but they've never produced fruit. Well, chances are you're growing them close to your house and probably on the north side of the house or the shaded side of the house. And probably they're under a big tree that's giving too much shade. Fruit trees need at least 8 hours of sun. If you can't grow good grass in that spot where your fruit tree is because it's just not sunny enough, or if your grass is really thin, that's a good sign that your fruit tree, at least in the agronomic sense, is not going to be in the right spot, and you'll probably get insects or disease because of it. The second reason that you have a real problem, what's the real problem? Why you have insects or disease? That why is so important. It's probably nutritional. I said agronomic, and the second is nutritional. Oh, my plants don't have enough to eat. I'll just go buy a bag of synthetic fertilizer and I'll give them and I'll feed them, right? All these feedings of the tree. Be careful. That could actually make the problem worse. You say, but how can it be bad? I'm going to be feeding the tree. Most fertilizers that you can buy are macronutrient, NPK. Anytime you see those three prominently on the bag, just leave that aside. Chances are your tree is not nutritionally deficient on NPK. What it likely is deficient on are micronutrients. Things that are measured in parts per million. You go, how would I know if this one was lacking some micronutrient like cobalt or copper or zinc or manganese, molybdenum, boron, and so on and so on? There's lots of them. It's about 20 micronutrients that a plant really needs. How do I know? Then it comes down to two approaches. Is your approach a rifle or a shotgun? Now the rifle approach, just like a rifle, very targeted, very specific, very narrow focused. You can take that approach and say, okay, I can see because there's disease on this tree that it's lacking something nutritionally. You can then take leaf samples and do what's called a sap analysis. It's kind of a blood test for a plant. For us, we have blood tests, but them it's the sap. And you can do that. It costs about $100 a sample to give you a reading of what might be lacking. What might this plant be lacking, in this case a pear, that's causing it to get disease. There is something. There's always a reason. And you can do that. It's very targeted. You find out, you know what? Yeah, this tree is lacking cobalt right now. And then you can apply a spray that's got a good dose of cobalt to correct that micronutrient deficiency. And that's one approach. And then, because you've solved the immediate biggest problem, usually in the second phase, you'll put a second round of a spray that would have a much wider range of micronutrients to address other possible deficiencies that it can have in the upcoming future. So that's a rifle approach, and it works great if you're a grower and your crop provides you with enough funds to pay for the sampling, pay for the targeted products that you can use that work really well. And that's great. If you're a grower, use that. It should more than pay for itself in increased results and increased yields and increased health of your tree. You're not a commercial grower, you're a gardener or a homesteader, or you have a small orchard and you go, yeah, I don't need that fancy testing and applying a very specific rifle products. Then you take the second approach, the shotgun approach. What is that? Just like a shotgun. It's not always spray and pray, but it's shoot wide rather than focused. Shoot at a whole bunch of things. In the case of plant nutrition, what you're trying to do is apply a wide range of macro and micronutrients at the lowest cost possible. It's basically giving your plant a bank account. How can I give it something? I don't know what it may be lacking. I don't know if it is lacking, but I just want to make sure my plant is not lacking anything nutritionally. And it's possible. You have to go back and think, how is soil formed? Here you got some soil forming, and what's the origin of that soil? It's rocks. You have to back up. In our climate here, 10,000 years ago, we were covered in glaciers. And when the glaciers retreated, you didn't all of a sudden have plants. You had rocks that were ground and made into a dust and a clay and a larger fraction that could have been silt and a lot of sand. And then rocks. That's what soil was. And often the first plants to colonize and to start on that were really pioneers, and most often they're what we now consider weeds. Why? Because weeds have always colonized the bare areas to try to get that to become soil. Because in the beginning, you'd be kind of hard pressed to say that was soil. It was just dust and gravel and sand. But with time, with plants, with roots, and with soil life, that became soil. Imagine you could give this plant something, you apply it once, and you basically could give this plant a bank account to draw from. Imagine, it wouldn't be lacking anything. It would just be able to go, oh, I need some of this today, and I need some of that tomorrow. And that bank account just keeps providing and providing. Life is good for that plant. And then imagine if what you applied can last for 3, 4, 5 years before you have to apply something again. Well, that's rock dust, the origin of soil. When you're dealing with rock dust or origins of soil that are the best, the single best rock type that you could get a dust from is basalt. What is basalt? Is it like salt with pepper or something? No, it's just a rock type. Basalt is a volcanic origin rock. So think of places that you may have visited, if you have visited around the world in some place, and if there is an area that's had a volcano erupt in the last 20 years, you could be pretty sure that around that area, you have some of the most fertile soils in the world. Why? Because basalt has a large range of some of the, well, the most important macronutrients. I said nutrition is macro and micro. So the macronutrients, things like silicon, things like calcium, sodium, potassium, these are just some. There's a lot, but there's most important, and what I said, the most important are not the macronutrients, they're often the micronutrients. Those are the ones that if they're deficient, even in just parts per million, the plant will be stressed and the plant will attract insects and will attract disease. And your soil will get weedier too. But it has a lot of micronutrients. It's high in iron. Iron's so important. It's what gives good blood in our case, but good sap in the case of a plant. It has things like manganese and a whole range of really critical micronutrients. Hey, it comes from deep in the earth, right? A volcano goes from deep down, all melted together, spews out, pours out, or shoots out. But you say, that's very nice, but I don't live near a volcano. I don't have access to a volcano. Well, you actually can, because you can get rock that is volcanic in origin, mostly basalts, but also can be granites. And when they are ground up, often just from mining, maybe you're near a mine or near a gravel pit that is working on those kinds of rocks, they often have, it's the dust is flying and they can have a dusty area. Or you can buy it if you look up basalt rock dust or basalt rock powder, and maybe there's a source not too far from you. I like to say basalt is really, really critical because it gives the plants the whole thing, but it's one element. If you combine it with compost, now you have two. But it's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 5, because there's a synergy. You put life and all those macro and micronutrients together and you get everything the plant needs. I talked about a bank account. Imagine your plant has this bank account and it can draw from it for years. The ideal way to add basalt and compost is to actually, if you make compost, and you should, is just sprinkle a layer of basalt every time you add a layer of material in the compost. It will help bind any smells a lot better, but it will help in the amount of life that's in that soil, because now your life in the compost is really well fed. And then use that compost for your plants. I like to say, if you can combine the two, because you say, I don't make compost, so buy some rock dust, buy some compost, mix the two together. I like about a 4-to-1 or a 5-to-1 by volume, so 1 bag of basalt and 4 bags of compost mixed together will give you about the right proportion. You just want your compost to become gray. And then you apply that like a mulch around your plant, your affected plant, your plant that's really not doing so well. Give it to that plant, and if you put it as a mulch, give it a couple inches. Take it to the drip line if you can for that plant and see what happens. You say, I did that. I gave it to my tree yesterday and I don't see results. This is not synthetics. This is natural form, and it works more on nature's rhythm, which isn't really short term. It might be a few weeks, might even be a season before you can start to see the effect, especially that as a mulch needs to be watered in. It needs to get a rain or 2 rains to bring some of those nutrients, to bring some of those minerals to the root zone of that tree in this case, or plant, whatever you're growing. So give it a bit of time. It's not going to be like maybe you're used to if you've used synthetic fertilizers. I do have a warning. There is a warning attached, not to the label, but I'm giving you a warning, especially if you think, wow, it works well, or I wonder, I have a lot of grass and I want to put it on my grass. Please be careful and be advised. The worst I've seen is people using it on grass. Not that it doesn't work, because it works so well, but then their biggest complaint is, man, I have to mow my grass twice as much. Say, well, is that really what you want grass for? To just be out there mowing every 4 or 5 days? So be careful if you apply it on grass, or just you save it for your more useful plants. Now it's up to you. Most people can't believe it can't be that simple and I'll solve the insect or disease problem of my tree. I say, just try it, please. Try it on your worst plant. Try it on the plants that you say, yeah, this is just infested with insects, or they're always been having disease. Try it on those plants. Give it an honest try and give it enough time to work. And then if it doesn't change anything certainly by next growing season, but let's say 2 seasons, fall to spring or spring to fall, if it hasn't changed that plant's reaction, then it's probably not a nutritional deficiency that your plant had. It's probably agronomic. The plant might be growing where it's just too wet, or it's just too dry for that plant. It's just stressed not by nutrition, but by the growing conditions. But in the end, it's up to you. I said, are you a doer of the word, or are you a hearer only? Hear what I had to say, but most of all, do it and check out how it will change your growing and will solve the problems at the root of them. Insects, disease, don't like and don't bother with healthy plants. And that's what I wish for you, healthy plants.